Hello, good morning. Happy Monday to you. Welcome to PsychCandy for Monday, August 8th. Deanna, good to see you. Everybody tuning in on YouTube, glad to have you here. Today, we are going to be talking about peer pressure. And more importantly, talking about the differences of what that takes on in our adulthood. Most people, when they think about peer pressure, when we think about that term, well, most of us equate that with our teenage years, and we may have, been the receiving end of group or in our so-called friends trying to coerce us into doing something we didn't want to do or which we knew to be wrong. But we associate usually peer pressure with just that early childhood. But we're going to dive into this a little bit today into looking at peer pressure in our adult lives and how that really impacts and the many, many different areas that it can impact. Marwan, good to see you. Happy Monday to you. Now, the most common forms of peer pressure are still the same. People try to persuade others into drugs, cigarettes, alcohol, sex, skipping class, or doing some kind of crime or something, with the intention of getting the victim to agree to fit into some kind of group or clique mentality, or a type of accepted behavior which they didn't necessarily feel comfortable with. Now, what's not often written about or spoken about, though, is peer pressure in our adult lives. There are many highly documented cases of bullying in the workplace, for example. And even on a less sinister scale, how many of you have ever been asked maybe to work extra time or something because the other people in the office had other plans or something like that, Or were you ever made to feel guilty because you refused to maybe go to the pub with the rest of the work gang on a Friday afternoon? Then there's also the subliminal peer pressure. You only have to take a look at how many people have got themselves into financial difficulty because of their need to keep up with everyone else around them and not be seen as like the odd one out. Even seemingly innocuous comments such as, "Oh, I just got my brand new BMW. Isn't it time you got rid of your old car?" That has an element of peer pressure about it. And we're not seeing, or we are now seeing like record levels of debt, people going into bankruptcy, people going into personal just devastation a little bit because everybody's trying to keep up. It's that overwhelming desperation to be seen as, the old saying, keeping up with the Joneses. And even more subtle still is the world of advertising. Think about that for a moment. Take fashion, for example, and the constant urge of the fashion industry in trying to tell us that any woman over a size 0 must be fat. Therefore, models who resemble stick figures, well, that's become the norm. That's what is being pumped and seen. All of this is a form of peer pressure. So how do we combat it? How do we take control of our lives? Combating peer pressure is all about establishing your own values about life and the things that are important to you, and in sticking to your own principles. Now, while some people find it hard to say no, the hardest thing is doing it for the first time. But once you've done it, you'll feel an enormous sense of self-empowerment, and not only that, you'll sometimes also find that others may also come around to your way of thinking, meaning the better way, the higher value way. If you look at peer pressure and think of it as letting yourself down, then it often becomes easier to combat and boost your own self-esteem at the same time. Remember when your parents used to maybe berate you with that old thing, well, if they jumped off a cliff, would you follow them? And quite often, this is all it would often take to enable us as children to see that the actions of somebody were wrong. Now, your own values of what makes you uncomfortable will always help you to avoid peer pressure. The idea that everybody's doing it, so it must be good, well, that is simply not true. Take a typical night out on any high street of the weekend, You'll only have to look at for example, hospital casualties and things of that after midnight to see evidence that it might not be everything it's cracked up to be, to always go along with the flow. The next point is, how do we choose our friends? Choosing like-minded friends in the first place is a great place to start. Most often than not, we tend to gravitate towards friendships where people have a similar outlook to ourselves. And this is especially truer as we get older. And as true friends, well, they wouldn't ask you to do something that, we felt was wrong or we weren't comfortable with. So therefore, choosing your friends wisely in the first place can often enable you to avoid peer pressure altogether. Think of yourself as a leader and not a follower. Even if that doesn't come naturally, those who see themselves as having more of a leadership role are comfortable with expressing their own opinions, feelings, and values. And those tend not to be chosen as victims when it comes to peer pressure. Because you rise above that mentality. You don't have to be a follower. This can be particularly useful, especially in work settings, where unlike choosing our friends, we're not always going to get on with every single person that we work with. So it's important that we can still stand up for ourselves and maintain your own values and your own beliefs and not do the things that you know are wrong. Which takes us into your values. Have a good sense of your own value system. Values maybe that your parents taught you many years ago will often form the backbone of your own values today. And with that said, let me pause there and just bring out that sometimes, and there are some people who did not have that level of upbringing. Therefore, the learning scope does come from those close friends that we hold dear. They come from that place where we have to rebuild ourselves based on what we learn as we're growing up, but sometimes not with our family members. Sometimes it comes from back to that place of making sure we've chosen the right people that we've connected to. To that extent, certain things in life will always be a no. We should be cast in stone. In other words, there will be certain lines that you've drawn upon which you just simply will not cross, regardless of external pressure to do so. Be fair-minded and point out things that you feel are unjust. And as you get older, things like office gossip, spiteful remarks, they can often make an adult feel a lot of pressure, to conform to the standards of others, just like peer pressure can have the same effect in the playground. Never allow yourself to jump on the bandwagon and just take the following role. You don't want to do that. You want to step up, have your voice, have your confidence. Sometimes you can say, hey, your actions are making me feel uncomfortable. Or do you ever stop to think how maybe this other person feels? These are usually enough to make others who also feel the same way stand up and be counted too, which is more than enough to make, the bully boys or girls kind of stand down. The power you have inside of you, that is yours. And acknowledge that peer pressure can only win if you let it win. If you refuse to let it intimidate you, it loses its impact and simply makes those who try to use it as an, intimidation tactic, well, then it starts to appear very small in your whole scope and in your whole focus. We could take a lot of the underlying points here and you could apply it to a lot of different areas in your life, especially when it comes to, for example, the doormat Debbies and things of that nature. Well, those are the people who simply do not stand up for their own value system because they maybe haven't even formed what that value system is or should be yet. And peer pressure, though, peer pressure can go in even to, I have dealt with many people who maybe are in bad relationships, abusive relationships, whatever the case may be, and I've actually watched people succumb to peer pressure to not rock the boat. Don't bring up the issue. It's just going to create a big world. You stay in it. No, you need to do this. Women and men are like, oh yeah, well, we've all been through the bad relationship. Just we're all toughening it out. You need to do the same thing. Well, No, what's right for somebody else may not be right for you. But if you just kind of bend everything all the time to succumb to everybody else just because you don't want to rock the boat, well, you better look at you better look at the pros and cons of that really fast of how it applies to you. Because it doesn't matter what everybody else thinks. It matters what you think. It doesn't matter what everybody else does. It matters what you do. So find your balance, find your focus, and let that focus always be you. So that you get to elevate and you get to rise up to be in the best place possible. Guys, thank you for being here. I hope you got something from this today. I will be back with you guys tomorrow. And here we are. We are this. I had to bring this particular topic and show a little bit shorter today. I apologize for that, but I have to jump into I have to jump into work stuff. But anyway, I appreciate you guys. Have a blessed and happy Monday. See you tomorrow. And until next time, be happy, be healthy, and most importantly, be you. Cheers.